chapter. Oh, good. Got it. The Minutemen do a good job, and Minutemen chapter does a great job in doing that. And so, again, I appreciate the chance to talk to you. We're going to go through this presentation. There's a lot of slides here, and Ken, I guess you shared the slides with the group right after the talk. So
Yes.
you'll be able to see these slides, and we'll go through some of them a little bit fast because I loaded it up with some information just to give you on people don't kind of understand what VUCA is, and they think it's software, they think it's just another kind of thing that's out there that they should buy, but it's just we're going to go through what it really is. So let's start it first of all. So kind of VUCA it provides companies with a model to start taking a look at what the things in their company or in their business environment is really causing them the biggest pain. So what we like to say is don't fight it, light it. So how do we get there? What's VUCA? What does it mean? And we're going to go through all of that for you. So if you look at the world market today, there was a time where we were a lot more steady, a lot more reliable. Forecasting, even though it was difficult, it was a lot easier to get data. And things weren't changing at the speed of light like they are today. And here's a remark there. I think the world maybe do have 5 computers in it, right? It's from Tom Watson, chairman of IBM, that he was thinking that, well, maybe it's the marketplace is 5 computers. Well, we know that's not right, right? That look at the change that took place there. Look at the change that took place in some of these bigger businesses, like Blockbuster. You think they had a handle on VUCA and change? No. Look at 1985. They were gung ho, and people were going to Blockbusters at buying all their CDs and whatever they were getting, tapes. And in 2010, they're no longer around. Polaroid, business that started in 1937. 2001 showed up and they're kind of gone. Toys R Us, I wouldn't have thought that would ever go out, but 1948 they established themselves. 2017 they're gone, right? Compaq, years of operation 1982 to 2013, they just didn't stay ahead of the curve, and they're not around anymore. So the business model is very volatile, uncertain, complex. There's a lot of ambiguity in it, and if you're not involved with making sure that's happening, and if companies aren't setting their strategy and goal based on that, they could have you in some trouble. Some companies just kind of refuse to say, look, change is inevitable. We can't do anything about it. There's nothing we can change. We're not going to be fighting this. We're going to just push back and say, guys, we can't do anything about it. What we're considering, or I'm considering when I talk to you about VUCA, is embrace it, embrace the change, because it's going to happen to you. Look what spending is in billions of dollars in the United States for supplies. It just continues to go up. Let me try to move this out of the way here a little bit. Yeah. It just keeps increasing and increasing, and the spend rate is just unbelievable. So your supply chains are longer, your supply chains are more difficult. Money being spent is in at worldwide is unbelievably growing. So this is something that we have to understand, and I know all of you are seeing this in your supply chains and in your companies. Look at the integration, globalization. Ken sits there all night long and works globally with companies all over the world. But globalization is an unbelievable change in industry today. And now we're finding that globalization is kind of in a US standpoint, is in a little reverse, right? So we're bringing companies back at the speed of light. I'm working with a couple of clients right now that have brought all their business back from China and are re-engaging and redoing and developing their manufacturing facilities again. What we're finding is they're just not ready for it. They say it's a great idea, let's do it. I want to reduce the risk of being involved with those countries, but they're finding it's tough to get people. They've kind of forgot the how to put product together again locally, and their supply chains aren't totally in place. So globalization is kind of something that we need to think about. And in a VUCA terms, it's really volatile. It's uncertain. You have to really understand that companies should be really looking hard at that right now. I just was with a company the other day that said it's unbelievable what the Ukrainian war has done to steel prices in the United States. It's just unbelievable. The prices are going up, and it's kind of like a silent cost that no one's talking about. No news reports on it, nothing like that's happening. But they're finding that the steel is getting tough to get, number one, and the mills are going to run for the DoD, and they're having a hard time getting product. Well, look at the things from a sustainability standpoint. Look at what we're looking at today. We never did this necessarily 20 or 30 years ago, right? We're looking at trying to say we don't want any poverty, zero hunger. Everybody has to have unbelievable health. Quality of education is being looked at. This is a big one that we're hearing a lot about, gender equality, and that all affects kind of the workplace, right? Clean environment, affordable clean energy, electric versus gas, and that's unbelievably changing the environments. Look at the automobile companies, what they're going through. They're re-gearing up and to make electric cars, and that's a whole host of things that brings up, and the prices of them are too high now. Getting batteries now, they're sourcing overseas for that. So there's a tremendous amount of things in this slide that you can take a look at, and you can talk about this later, that affect your companies, climate, life, all of that stuff that's just unbelievably important now to companies that weren't necessarily focused on just a few years ago. So also the American consumer is looking at product differently, right? 90% of American consumers consider environmental impact when making a purchase. I thought that number was unbelievable. I would have never guessed it. But when we did the research for this presentation, we found that 90% consider environmental impact when making a purchase. 50% are willing to pay more for products and services from eco-friendly companies. That's, I thought, very interesting. So look at the difference in these numbers. Regular.
Yeah, we
Yes.
at Excelis, we've done the same. We have gone 100% renewable energy, electricity, paying a little more for it, but our customers are requiring us to be carbon neutral at some point. So we've gone more environmental as we're making our purchases, especially the big ones. Yeah. And we are same thing with willing to pay more, not a lot more, but definitely somewhat more. So
yeah, it's kind of amazing how that's shifted, and we got companies that we work for that are having a tremendous issue with packaging and how they package, what they package it in, and if it's returnable. And I mean, it's just unbelievable. Our companies and people that are buying products and companies that are making products are really thinking about these things now, right? And even talking about that last one, 67% talk about properly disposing of product. Is it easy to do? And so a lot of change here, everyone on this call, a lot of things that are happening that are really causing a change in your way of thinking from a manufacturing standpoint, right? So how did we get there? How did we get to this VUCA? How did we get to this volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, right? What is driving that? Well, technology's changed, right? We showed that computer companies that were around 20 years ago aren't around now. Things change every day. iPhones, and they come out with a different thing every day. They just came out with a new release of an iPhone now. So your old iPhone, I guess, you just throw it away, I guess, or try to dispose of it regularly. Send it back. Globalization is really an issue today. I would imagine everybody on this phone call, most companies are working with some issues of overseas purchasing, supply chains that are stretched out and very difficult to work with, right? So, we all are facing some of that stuff. And then the sustainability issue. That's we just talked about that. Ken just talked about it. And I'm sure you all are working on that, those types of things on a day-to-day basis. So what is VUCA, by the way? So VUCA is volatile. And by the way, where did VUCA come? I should have said this right off the bat. VUCA came out of the Department of Defense, started in late 80s, right? When they knew that they had to fight these types of issues and understand this to do whatever they had to do at the Department of Defense, right? They knew things were unstable, and there were always going to be challenges, things that they didn't know So the uncertainty part of it, we don't know the outcomes of things, so we have to be aware of that, and we have to have processes. We have to be agile to be able to look at that complex. They have many interconnected parts, right? And you all have that type of thing at work, right? Complex interconnection, I feel, is one of the biggest issues that most companies have, right? And what I mean by that is, are all your processes from quote to cash tied together? Do they work seamlessly? Do your system support them seamlessly? Does everyone talk the same language? Or are there isolated islands that really do really well, but they don't feed departments that are downstream or upstream that are connected to them? So they may do really well, but they're feeding other areas that don't do well. So that whole alignment, I feel, is very, very important. I preach about it all the time, and I think that's a big part of the complexity that drives this VUCA. And what in clarity? Do we have clarity? Can you say to yourself that my business, I have total clarity. I absolutely know where they want to go. I know what they want and expect from me, and there's no ambiguity at all. It's total clear. I'm not so certain that you can all answer yes to that. In some areas, maybe, but those are the types of things that make the VUCA process up, right? It's not really a process, but it's kind of a concept, right? It's a model. So the complexity is characteristics of that. A situation has many interconnecting parts, and then we just chatted a little bit about that, right? So you can also understand that, and wherever you have that interconnection, you have to have strong processes, strong business rules. Your system has to work right, and it could be overwhelming to companies when they don't have that in place, right? And volatility. The challenge is there is unexpected, unstable, may not know what the duration of something is going to be, right? And that could swing from companies that are trying to fight the cycles in their business or their industry, where they have real cyclical demand patterns, and so that really is a challenge to some companies, or just things out in the industry. Not too long ago, I worked for a large company in Maine, and they used an awful lot of steel. Well, the steel prices and the availability of steel overnight went crazy, and they worked and built things to town and city contracts. Well, they were locked into a price that was before the increase, and it was a real challenge for them. It was a major challenge for them. So that volatility is really tough, and you need to be ahead of that all the time. And your management team and the company and all the key individuals in that company really need to be ahead of that and understand what might be going on. Ambiguity is just casual relationships are completely unclear. No precedent exists. You don't know what you don't know, kind of thing. And that's not a good way to run a business. And then there's uncertainty. It's the lack of information, that may be causing major challenges in your company. So, and if you don't have the information, you can't manage it. So how much do you know about a situation, and how well can you predict the outcomes? That's kind of something that what we're saying is that's your VUCA process, and we want to light it. We don't want to say that we can't do anything about it. So what are your biggest challenges? Look at all this challenge. This is a challenge chart that I put together and I haven't updated it, and you could see it a bunch of years, but I would imagine that what I'm going to show you probably still exist. Where are some of the biggest challenges? And look where they are. Fluctuation in demand, visibility were pretty high on this chart then, and I'll bet you that hasn't changed an awful lot. And then what I've got there is something that we know that if I'm in a VUCA kind of thinking, we really are probably struggling with some of those things today. I mean, you got other things that are there. Inventory management has always been a challenge, but hopefully you're doing a good job on that the best you can. But getting a consumer demand and understanding what it is and getting that visibility upstream is pretty important to a company. One of the things that, again, and this is just me talking, is sales and operations planning is a kind of an important important function for companies to take a look at, right? And you know what you use sales and operation planning is a way of looking at the future, not customer orders, but where your products are going in the future, so you can start predicting what you might need for resources. And that would be a challenge, and that's something would help that visibility, so that you don't all of a sudden get hit with a need to buy $1 million piece of equipment that takes a year to get, and you need it tomorrow, right? So, you know, there are quite a few people that are probably still struggling with that, right? So customers' expectations. Look at in 1960. You know, it was cost, cost, cost. Now I've been around since 1960, not quite 1960, but then in the 70s, and that was it, and was always cost. And you were developing. Then it switched to, well, hey, look at customers expect cost and quality, right? That's kind of goes hand in hand, and on-time delivery, and you know, those things were in there. Today is speed, right? No one wants to wait today. How many have waited in a Dunkin' Donut line to get a cup of coffee, and the person in front of you may be getting a wrap or something else with his coffee, in which is taking a couple of minutes longer than you expect, and you're aggravated that is not moving faster? Or you say things like, why didn't he go inside to get that order? Well, this is the fast food line, but you can't even wait 2 or 3 minutes anymore. And the customers are expecting that speed. I mean, so lead time, and that kind of equates to my thinking, lead time in customers in companies need to be aggressively looked at. Companies do not want to wait. They want to put a product, the sales guy sees them, salesperson sees them. They say it's 6 weeks to give you this product. They want it and expect it in 6 weeks, right? So all your organization has to understand that, and all your settings and all your processes and all your inventory has to support that. And what we drive for companies is we insist that companies take a look at developing a customer lead time model and sharing that with sales, right? So manufacturing develops this by product line, sales sells to it, and customers become more happy that way, right? So speed is really kind of looked at today as a really key process there from a customer expectation standpoint. Predictability. I mean, how many times have you sat around a conference table and talked about predictability? You master schedulers on the phone on this call must know that, right? That's kind of key to you. Predictability, what's changed, you know, your master scheduling horizons, what you allow for change in the frozen zone versus all the other zones out there. So you fight this on a day-to-day basis, predictability, and everybody wants something faster, right? You know, supply chain. Key supply chains are longer and more difficult to deal with today. It's supplier, factory, distributor, retailer, customer. If your supply chain's broken anywhere in that process, you know, you always are going to have problems. So looking at your end-to-end supply chain, and this is not necessarily a supply chain talk, but VUCA really is in immediate need of improvements in your supply chain. If you want to ease that VUCA process up, if you want to really ignite and be agile, well, your complete supply chain has to be really in sync, right? From your raw material to your customer's customer, that has to be in pretty good condition. Your systems have to provide information for that supply chain to be good. Your processes have to be in place. Your manpower and everything else needs to be in place to have a seamless supply chain with no broken chain, right? So concept is don't fight VUCA, kind of light it. There's little you can do to change the VUCA context, right? In fact of life, by all trends, will continue to exist and prevail, and even get worse, right, as we move into the future. What if we used it as a source of competitive advantage as we design our supply chain? So look at, if your company and in your process can embrace the fact that you have all these changes and you have this VUCA model, if you can embrace it, improve it, become agile, who's going to be the winner? I mean, if you've got competition, who's going to be the winner if you've found out how to make that happen, right? So you want to take a look at these three things. I always do. You want rapid response. You want to be agile, and you want to have simple processes. And it's key to have that. And I look at companies, we get called into companies all the time where the processes are so bogged down. They've got people checking the checkers, and they've got sign-offs, and they've got it takes hours and days to receive something on the dock when I get it delivered, and it's just crazy how those processes are bogged down. They put in these sophisticated ERP systems, and by the way, they are sophisticated and they are great, but they get all wrapped up in the processes and the wording of these ERP systems and make it almost impossible sometimes for areas to work correctly. All right. And then rapid response. Everything has to be rapid. You need rapid response. When a customer calls up and he wants to know your lead time and he wants to know when he can get a product, he has to be told on the phone. If he books an order, if he calls for an order, he should be able to book it and understand all that data in the same phone call, right? It's just being rapid, agile, and simple becomes very, very key in improving and embracing the VUCA world. So I kind of made this kind of cute. We want to light the VUCA in the supply chain. So the L would be lean your supply chain processes. The I would be identify your constraints. T is understand the time and technology that you have and that you could use to help, and become an exception-based management process, right? So you manage by exception. And that's, if you want to take a look at that and use that as a model, you use that light version as a model and you work on your supply chain in those ways. So you want to take a look at embrace VUCA as a competitive weapon. You want to take your demand, we know it's volatile, and you want to understand how you can manage with that. You want to simplify and excel in the following areas to help that demand craziness, right? You want to have, and these are only a few things, right, I threw on here. Capacity buffer strategy requires close alignment with your subcontractors and internal. You want to reduce the total supply chain cycle time. You get so much out of reducing that cycle time and that lead time in your supply chain, right? You get improved processes, you get improved quality, you reduce your inventory. And, so number 2 is a big deal there. You want a lean order to cash flow. Here's what I suggest to a lot of companies when I talk to them is I'd say, look, you take internally a champion that understands your business, and you take that person and you put them in charge of doing an assessment from order to cash, right? Take a look at all of the processes, do your value maps and be aggressive and do your interviews and get an understanding of where things are not going fast and have issues and that there's waste, and do a lot of that value mapping and do it yourself internally. It's unbelievably eye-opening when you see that. So you want collaborative and fast flow of information along the whole supply chain. That's kind of number 4. So you want to, again, this is embracing VUCA as a competitive weapon. Your supply chain management business forces that you're trying to understand and manage to be better is you want cost management and reduction, right? That's a big business force. Demand management, you want companies need to look at lead time reduction. You need to be agile, right? Competitive pricing, global sourcing, outsourcing. Look at the unbelievable difficult tasks that are just under the demand management button. Software sophistication we just talked about. Are you sophisticated, and are you using that software as a weapon, or is that causing you a problem? I can't tell you the number of companies we still call and say that they've installed a really great ERP system and just don't seem to be getting what they thought they should be out of all the work they did to implement that system. And so that's a sad situation when that takes place after all the effort. But your software sophistication is increasing on a day-to-day basis. Companies think, well, the better the software, the more sophisticated, obviously, the better we be. Well, there's a downside to that also, too. But software is getting sophisticated. Customer satisfaction.
Dan.
Yes, sir.
So just to highlight, I was going to say artificial intelligence, everyone's worried about it. It's going to take jobs, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of when you say don't take off from VUCA, embrace it, light it. Well, people that are embracing AI for improving presentations to customers, to handle some of the grunt work that we just don't have time for day to day, people are embracing it, keeping a guardrail on it within limits, but embracing it to save time. So just an example for today's world that it really does if you do embrace it, it does help a lot, you know.
Yeah, well, it really does, by the way.
Hey,
We use
hey,
it, we use it
Brian's
in our
still here.
business. Go ahead. Was another chat?
I just in the world of software sophistication, I see these things happen, and I think we had a speaker here who brought up I can't remember anybody's name anymore, but he was an ex-military guy in the Navy, and he talked about this whole system of how to manage stuff, right? And watch. Oh man, this is really intense. But you have some intense software and intense ways of doing things, but now you need the people to understand how to do it. It's like, is the software getting ahead of us? Now, AI is also getting ahead of us, and I think AI also is interconnecting so much so that how are we managing it? You know?
Yeah, Larry, that's a great point, by the way. And you know what I also say to a company is when you're looking at software, and this is not an ERP talk, but when you're looking at software, you also have to look internally and say what I'm buying and how I want to implement it. Can my people use it? You know, do I have the level of intelligence and knowledge in those areas that they're going to be able to embrace this, improve it, and make it work for us? And sometimes there is a disconnect there, or I know I don't have the sophistication in the people, so therefore I got to spend a lot more time on the education and training program. Because by the way, I believe that everybody can learn it. It's just that some companies skip that thought process, and all of a sudden they've got a software package that just is too sophisticated based on the level of not intelligent, the level of education. So you're right, and AI is kind of the same thing. Although there is easy ways to embrace AI, but you can get in a little trouble if you're not careful with it. So that was a real good comment. Thanks, Larry. Risk management also is important, right? So where does the risk come and where do you play with the risk and who's involved with determining that? For instance, if you're forecasting product, does your company have in the sales and operations, sales ops software, are you able to put opportunity in there for customer orders or opportunity for forecast and be able to say that at certain opportunity percentages, I'm going to do things like at an opportunity percent when I'm talking with a customer, it's at a 20 or 30%. But as we move down through that sales cycle and sales process, it gets to be 40, 50, and 60. And at some percentage, I'm going to go out and buy some of that long lead material. Am I going to take that risk to do that? You know, so there's risk and there's other areas that you can do that. And then market share and margin improvements. All companies are looking at market share and margin improvements, right? So that's the business forces that are kind of affecting your supply chain. And then the tools that we have to work with in that supply chain are unbelievable. And you have to ask ourselves, are we working with those tools all correctly, right? Are we value stream mapping? If you're not doing value stream mapping now on a regular basis, then you're really missing the boat, because that in a very quick period of time with all internal people can tell you a real good story on a process that's out of control. You do a value stream mapping of the to-be, of the as-is, and then you sit back with that same team and say, let me dream a little and make a to-be map, and then the difference between the as-is and the to-be become your project plan to fix, and you really just go to town and fix it. Those things can be done very quickly. Mistake proofing, 5S, one-piece flow, Kanban, demand pull, vendor managed inventory. I don't even have it on that chart, but all those things are lean tools that can be applied to helping that lean out that supply chain and lighting it up, right? And there we got some more. So supply chain analysis, consignment, vendor managed, Kanban, container control, safety stock, transportation control, and even buying capacity where you can are tools that are in that supply chain. Keep it agile, keep it simple. Hit that simple button more than you do the complex. Determine your inventory levels by product, by ABC. It's a concept that's been around for lots of years. It's at a big ASCM. It was old Apex. They preached it. ABC is an analysis of your inventory, A being high dollar, long lead time, and B sort of, C follows that. And companies often just don't do that. I go into companies that are sophisticated, $700-800 million a year company, $800 million companies in revenue, and they aren't looking at their inventory based on ABC. Limit the inventory liability in the supply chain. You just can't push all your inventory responsibility back to your suppliers. That's not managing your inventory. Develop processes for pulling inventory through the suppliers, the point of need. Develop inventory strategy like just-in-time too. Vendor-managed inventory. If you're not taking advantage of vendor-managed inventory for all your C-level items now, again, you're missing the boat. Your vendor can control that inventory. Let them deliver it. Let them bring it in. Let them put it at point of use. And then only take and decontrol it. Take it off of MRP. It can stay on your bills, and it could be there, but you're just not going to let MRP run on all that C item stuff. Consignment inventory, Kanban pull, other things like that will help you become more agile. These are all just things that I'd like to put in a talk, and just hopefully you're talking about this, and mostly you probably are doing most of these things, I hope, right? So in a lean supply chain process, you want to select the most simplest direction. You look at that square, you could get caught up in any one of those mazes, right? They're dead ends, right? You just can't figure your way out of there. So you want to have your business look at it as simple as you can, right? You want to be able to navigate through that maze with simple processes, well understood, well trained, well educated, right? With people knowing what they got to do. And again, with your processes aligned from quote to cash. You want to make sure of that, right? And then you want to take a look at.
Again.
Go ahead. Question?
On Agile, I talked with a number of people in the software world and introducing Agile and complex software, safety, security, critical software, and it's driving a lot of us crazy because Agile is always looking for the low-hanging fruit, get things done simple, just like you said, try to push it out. Whereas in the world of software safety, critical, and Department of Defense activity, it's about making sure that we touched all the bases, and we got the regression analysis. This thing we changed here, did it screw something up elsewhere? And I think Agile is good for stuff that's not super complex. And prove to me I'm wrong.
No, I can't prove to you you're wrong, Larry, because I'm going to tell you that in the quality area, that's one area that you have to have the right documentation. You have to be specific. It is not the word agile. Agile can be used as how I'm writing that documentation and how I'm maintaining it and things like that. But it's very needing to be documented and understood, and very careful with the information, especially if you're working with the Department of Defense. If you don't have a great quality program in place, you're just not a player. And so, yeah, you're hitting on something that's when I'm looking at being agile, it's not in that quality area, and I don't often talk about that. So I'm really glad that you brought that question up. There is a difference there, right? So some companies will have their own set. Quality is outside the system. It's not part of their engineering bill of material process. It's in a different host software package. They have to keep unbelievable records on it, et cetera, et cetera. So good question. When I'm looking at constraints now, I'm looking at these types of constraints. I'm looking at demand as a constraint, supplier, work center, labor, information, and talent. These are the constraints outside of quality, Larry, that most companies are working with all the time. Demand. Your demand is a key player. How you use it and what it's used for, unbelievable. Your supply base could be a constraint if you're not careful. If your internal work centers aren't understood and not managed correctly, if you don't have excellent capacity planning going on, if you don't have a good routing out there that's driving your processes through the factory, and that routing is feeding a good capacity model where you can compare your actual capacity to demand capacity. If your labor is not trained, if your information is late and wrong, and if your talent pool is low, those are all identifiable constraints that if you're working and you're understanding VUCA, you need to be working on. And I don't know, hopefully you don't have all of them, but I'm sure some of you have a few of those that probably could be worked on. I like to take a look at the talent one a lot, and there's risk in the talent pool. Companies are having a hard time getting talented people. It's difficult for companies to find trained planners and buyers, and again, master schedulers. Difficult to get people out in the factory. I'm working for a large company called Atlantic Track and Turnout. They make most of the rail and turnouts for the railway industry in the country, and they're having a real difficult time getting people to weld and machine and material handlers. I mean, so they're doing tremendous in-house programs to train that. Here's a way of looking at your talent pool, right? So I like to look at, there's T-shaped employees and I-shaped employees, right? I-shaped employees have expertise in the area, but they can't really collaborate across multiple areas. You know, and you all have those, and there's nothing wrong with an I-shaped employee, except they're doing a specific job and they typically don't go left or right. But a T-shaped employee has deep expertise in one area and working understanding across a lot of disciplines, which gives them insight in the bigger picture. And you're kind of looking for that, you know, you would hope you have a kind of a mix of I's and T's, depending upon, you know, what you got them employed to do. I also like to look at this, you know, some companies will say, Dan, we just can't buy, we can't find planners, we can't find buyers, it's just a very difficult time. I say, have you looked internally yet? I like to look internally. I think most companies have what I call diamonds in the rough. They're down there, they're languishing, they're a planner, they're a buyer, no one's taking a look at them. They keep doing their job really good day after day. They come in, they're there all the time, and they communicate well, they're easy to manage, people. And those are the types of people we may want to grab a hold by the collar and say, look, I know you can do a lot different. I am going to invest in education. I'm going to invest in training. I've seen this happen an awful lot. And they just explode and become an unbelievable good asset for a company.
Dan.
So you got T-shapes, you got I-shapes, and you got those diamonds in the rough.
So Dan, we do that at Excelis. We have one of our best commodity managers came from receiving, and she had all those qualities that you were mentioning. Did the job, was friendly, knew different people in different departments, smart, diamond in the rough. She's now one of our best commodity managers. We have another buyer who is very multi-skilled, who came from receiving again. So it's not that we always go for receiving, you know, but from planning or any of the different departments, if you have a diamond in the rough, we do invest in training. We pay for all the Apex training. The classes, the company pays for all the classes. You know, they're very much into investing in people, and we get something out of it too. So anyway, sorry.
You absolutely do. Yeah. And by the way, they're out there, and we often don't look there. Companies often don't look there first, right? So I have nothing against human resource departments at all. In fact, I love most human resource managers. However, they often want to go outside, hire somebody to go out and look for people for them, pay a fortune for that. And when you do that, so you sometimes get surprised, right? Who you thought was perfect and it was going to be a home run, you kind of, you know, they don't make it, right? For some reason. And they don't do the other thing, like we were just saying, they don't go into the company and say, look at these people. When was the last time my manufacturing manager or my purchasing manager or my materials manager did a real good understanding and evaluation of the skill levels of the people? You know, and sometimes when you do that, you say, oh my God, look at the skills this person has. All I got to do is touch this, this, and this, and I've got an unbelievable asset here. So good point. I just thought I'd mention it because it is a pet peeve of mine that companies don't do this enough. And when they do, they get really surprised at what they can find. They can find some real good diamonds out there.
Just a call out, maybe even on the other side of things here. We talk a lot about AI. We talk about planning and folks and their analytical capabilities. What ends up happening in many places is other organizations are drafting from the planning organization, right? Because anybody that has to do with a data lake or intense analytic or AI or sales predictions, I get the fact all those things might be S&OP and S, but a lot of the foundational elements of a corporation are now pulling from planning, in my mind, because planning does a lot of analysis, understands a lot of analytical
Yeah.
tools, so they become of great value in customer quality or, you know, any of those other go-to-market strategies, any of that. Yeah.
And Joe, you're absolutely right. Look what planners go through on a day-to-day basis
Yeah.
from an analytical standpoint, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones that are out there balancing the flow of work, releasing work, not releasing work, understanding that. I mean, and by the way, they got to be good communicators. That's the other side of it. So other departments outside of planning said, look at this guy. I mean, he's a great communicator. I talk to him. He's always pleasant. He always knows what's going on. And so, yeah, those are the people out there that are real. I like to look at them in diamonds in the rough, by the way.
And just close to the point, the reason I bring it up is I will market a planning role internally to folks to try to draft them in. And part of my marketing pitch to get them into the group is, hey, there's a whole landscape that planners deal with, and you will be exposed to all kinds of other options in your career. So if you want to explore the sandbox, come through here and you'll see the sandbox. Yeah,
exactly right. Kind of the way I work my way up too, by the way. So I'm very familiar with that.
And just for the people who are listening in, Joe is a very high level manager at Dell. So what he says is definitely right on the money. And also I wanted to point out Larry is over at ASQ. He's one of the people on the board for ASQ, Society of Quality.
Yeah.
So just an FYI on the two attendees that brought up some stuff here. It's pretty interesting.
So Ken, don't believe me, but these guys are telling you the truth.
Yeah, they verify.
No, I know Larry and Joe. I really appreciate it. That's it. That's all. That's Ken. Okay. Well, good guys. I'm glad this slide kind of hit home a little bit because I do think it's an important slide. Okay. And by the way, and if you're looking at it under that VUCA umbrella, I mean, employees are key, right? You can have constraints and you can have business rules that need to get played. You can have all of this stuff, but if you don't have the right mix of employees with the right mindset and the right attitude, you might as well close the door.
Yep. Okay.
So now one of the constraints I had on that bottle was, your supply base. I like to take a look at, and I'm going to go through some of these slides a little bit faster because I did load this presentation up. And you all have these slides anyway. I like to look at a supplier analysis process steps. One is just to organize, get a supply chain steering committee together, prepare some scope statements around a vision and mission, your principles, your customers that you want to take a look at, define your manufacturing business technologies, take a look at your supply chain, look at your inventory model, your supplier partnering. How are you doing all this? Are you doing Six Sigma work, redesign, Kanban, vendor managed inventory? I hope you all are doing that, right? Continue that. So that's A, B, C, D. Continue down that line. Select project managers. Select a wonderful outside consultant. That's kind of important. That's E. Supply chain education and training. Take a look at ABC analysis. ABC analysis of your inventory and your products is unbelievable. You can do an awful lot if you do that correctly. Look at your product lines, parts, and suppliers. Collect your data, value stream it, and then actually do the same kind of work at the supplier. So this is all that stuff you did internally, right? Now you're going to look at your supplier, collect and analyze the data at the supplier. Look at order modifiers and bombs. Okay, here's what I'm saying now. Your ERP system and your material processes in that ERP system, your item masters and bills of material better be 100% accurate, right? 100% accurate, not 70% accurate, not 80% accurate, but your order modifiers, your bombs, your routings, the volumes, your inventory, cost, your critical parts, your capacity, all of this has to be dead on, right? You want to collect that same data at your sub-supplier. So needs to be all. So internally, you have to have that data right. And you have to understand what that data looks like at your suppliers and sub-suppliers, right? Because most of the companies now are putting their systems on more of an auto MRP model. And we'll discuss that in a minute. It's all value streams, discuss and finalize. Take a look at all these types of things when you're looking at the process steps. You're going to have a class on negotiation, but negotiate new productivity and collaboration strategy, negotiate your lead time, your lot sizes, and all of that stuff. Identify your risk, establish demand signals in the supply chain, and establish supply chain signals and MRP, Kanban, distribution. So, I mean, these are all things that you might be doing, but I put this together, and you can use this like as a template for moving forward. Do that order to cash review, develop your metrics, and then come through a project completion and finalize, meet with suppliers, prepare to celebrate because you have all your supply chain in shape. That's what I'm hoping for, right? And one of the reasons you're doing that, or some of the reasons you're doing that, is all A supply. That's why I like ABC, right? All A suppliers have been value stream mapped and non-value added stuff eliminated. No buyer involvement for A supplier releasing. That's all Kanban. All A suppliers have service agreements, VMI, evergreening, consignment, blah, blah. All A suppliers deliver at first operation. Same day, next day delivery for all A suppliers, right? So then I want A items. So, you know, you look at your inventory. It's the 80-20 rule. You got fewer A suppliers and fewer A parts than you do B's and C parts typically. So I want my A items managed to the nth degree. I want to use a Kanban process. I want certain people only to work on that A items. And that's the way I want to run my A item business, right? My B items, I want to run on, if I got a good operating ERP system, auto MRP, no involvement. MRP runs, I put demand at the top, MRP works, it says I need the part, you place the order, and it's automatically placed. I don't want buyer and planner involvement. B items are on auto MRP. C items, every C item should be on a vendor managed process. You're not handling them. MRP is not working on them. That's simplifying your business. That's becoming agile. Now, can you do it across the board for everything? Did I just say you could? No, but you want to try to look at these by product lines and do the best you can by making your product lines work like this. It really simplifies everything in the planning and processing standpoint. Again, it stems from good data, though. You better have a good BOM. You better have good item masters. All that data has to be correct, or this could get you in trouble if it's not. So volatility. You need to have rapid change in parts availability. Rapid change, you got to be able to change price as the markets change, right? You got currency issues that you're working with now because of all the, issues out in the country and out in the world right now. You want rapid geopolitical change. I mean, are people afraid now? Are companies out there afraid of doing business with China? Are they worried about Taiwan issue? Are they worried about North Korea now becoming a part of with Russia and China? Are they worried about that? I mean, those things are out there. I mean, you can't bury your head in the sand. That could happen to you, right? And again, I'll tell you right now, I've got more and more companies bringing things back to the U.S. to be made. Are prices going up? Well, yeah. Well, you better be able to have rapid change in price, right? Rapid global customer expansion. Yeah. Oh, yeah. If your customers are going all over the country, all over the world, you better be able to follow them, right? That's managing some of the volatility. Only 5 things, but I'll bet you Ken and the rest of you guys can come up, and I'm sorry, I keep saying guys. People could come up with a list of 20. So VUCA and the supply chain. You want to link your supply chain strategy to the overall business strategy. So that linkage is important. You want to identify your supply chain goals and develop plans to ensure every process is mapped, understood, and is capable of meeting your supply chain goals. Define your business strategy guidelines with customers and suppliers. Develop a supply chain information system strategy that offers clear information and it views every step in the supply chain. Develop systems to listen to signals. Manage to source a supply by developing partnerships. It wasn't too long ago where developing a partnership with a supplier was like, oh my God, that's not make believe. You can't do that. Our legal won't let you do that or even say those words. But if your suppliers aren't your partners, if you're not looking at them as actually being a part of your company, you're missing the boat.
I had just quick comment on that, right? Early in my career, something that stuck with me. The gentleman that was leading the procurement organization, I said the word vendor, and he said, whoa. If you don't understand who these companies are, we can't talk. You need to understand that the vendor is the machine that you buy your Coca-Cola out of. That's a vendor. We have suppliers. These suppliers are people that we depend on and they depend on us. Don't call the supplier a vendor. And he said, if nothing else, think about the term vending machine and understand that that's not a relationship you have. We have relationships. They are our suppliers. Yeah.
Joe,
Anyway,
that's beautiful.
It stuck with me, and yeah.
Well, Joe, I've just stole that now. That next week's slides, that's going to be on next week's slide. That's really good. And by the way, you got to think. I mean, that supplier is a key to your business, right? I mean, you kidding me? What's material is if the cost of goods sold, what's the highest number? Material, right? Well, that's
You better not your overhead and your burden and your logistics. It's almost every bit of material in the cogs.
That's exactly right, by the way. Good point, Joe. Thanks for that again. So continue. I just put some more bullets here. I don't want to go through those fairly fast because we're at 7 o'clock right now. So you guys can see all this. People can see all this, and it's so important to identify these and see where you sit with all these. That's why I think it's important to do the assessment from order to cash. Gauge in your own companies how good am I doing these things or not doing them. So forecast demand information will provide supply chain, and here we go with the forecast. I want to be able to look at my immediate requirements, mid and medium, long range, and so forth. I want to be able to do what if. I want analysis with that. I want to be able to say, do I have the ability to produce the product? You want to eliminate excessive purchase order approval steps. Well, I'll bet you right now, if I went into every one of your companies, in a lot of cases, there are going to be 7 approval steps before I can place a purchase order on the simplest products, on the simplest cost. I mean, and why do I pay a good money to a buyer or purchasing agent, purchasing manager who can't place the order for what he thinks he needs to buy without going through 3 steps? I don't agree with it. Some companies will fight me on that, but I don't agree with it. I agree that it should be as simple as possible. Provide product line Here's a good one, guys. Provide product line matrices for sales and order entry. So I challenge the manufacturing operation to come up with what the real product, what lead time is for their products. Segregate their products, come up with the right lead time, how long it takes me to buy it, how long it takes me to manufacture it, how long does it take me to put it together and ship it, put that lead time together, send that to sales so sales can sell to that lead time. Instead of selling inside the lead time, which puts everybody in an expedite condition right off the bat, right? So put that lead time matrix, and then if that lead time matrix that you give to sales is too long, let them come back to you and say, look at Dan, I can't be competitive with that lead time. We've got to do something. Well, that's good. You want them to come back with that kind of information. So now you got a challenge and something to work on versus just having them sell inside your lead time and then have a major battle with the master scheduler on a day-to-day basis, right? So just kind of a thing I like to look at. And then utilize your available to promise and also your capable to promise logic that's built in a lot of your ERP systems. So light it, don't fight it. If your company was designed for success using 20th century tools, you better change that thinking. You could be doomed for failure. You better start looking at adjusting, modifying, transition, transforming, and shifting to a better way and a new way of talking. You can't fight it. You got to light it, right? And there's that one. You light your supply chain, identify your constraints, understand your time and technology, and look at exception-based management instead of looking at everything. Here's something, why it happens. Only 9% of the Fortune 500 companies that existed in 1955 are still listed. The average lifespan of an S&P 5 company has decreased over the last century, right? We need to shift from traditional management by objectives to management by exception driven, right? The relevance of supply chain management cannot be understated, right? Supply chain is key. Understand VUCA, don't fight it, light it. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. One of my Goombas, Leonardo da Vinci, said that, and I truly believe that. So guys and gals, that's the end of it. I hope I gave you some information. I hope these slides can kind of give you a template of some of the things to look at. And I'm always available, and I tell all my PDM talks, anytime you want to just chat, talk, run something by me. I'm not a lawyer. My phone rings, I don't charge. So feel free to do that. So that's it.
Oh.
Thanks very much.
Dan, great job. Thank you, my
Yeah,
friend.
stuff.
I'm
Okay.
going to put in the chat window right now before people hang up
Okay.
a CEU certificate to show you attended in case you need that for certification, recertification for your boss to say, you had some training. So that there'll be a link in there for that. And then there's also a link to a survey. 'Cause we want to know what you think. We really do. And the last thing is, I haven't done that yet, but I'm going to put in a link to past events. So this PowerPoint is great, and we're going to post it probably tonight, worst case this morning, on the past events link of our website. So I'm going to put that link in here too in the chat window. What you think? Okay, so the first two links are out there on chat. You need to copy them now because when you hang up on Zoom,
Yeah.
everything's gone. No links. And then this is the link to the past presentations. The presentation from tonight is not there yet, but it will be by tonight or tomorrow morning.
And if for some reason, Ken, anybody misses it, they can call me. I'll send it to them.
Bingo.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Great job. And Dan, we'll be sending you a gift card from Massachusetts Minuteman chapter.
No, thank
Thanking you for a great job you did. So
All
much
right.
appreciated.
pleasure.
We're going to send it to your email address. So it's going to say it's from Sandeep Gawar from
Ah.
Amazon, and it's going to look like it's spam. And it's going to go to the junk mail folder, but it really is a gift card from
All
us,
right.
from
Sounds good.
Sandeep Gawar.
Okay.
Guar. So
All right. That's good. Hey, by
I
the
love
way,
it.
if you whatever you give to a speaker, if you want to donate that to the student night, you want to buy a book or something, feel free to do that. I mean,
Yeah. Well, it's just a system we have, but yeah, that's
Okay.
not a bad idea.
all right.
Yeah, good stuff. So now questions and answers. Now somebody says I don't see the two links. It should, you know what? I think I just sent them to one person. So I'm going to resend them. Give me 1 minute. I'm a loser. Hang on. Oh man. Sorry, people. Just trying to
okay,
coordinate
guys.
things. So this one right here is the link for the past presentations. And this is the link right here, two links for the
PDM credit.
for the certificate and for the survey.
Oh.
Okay, good.
Yep.
And it even says to Daniel at the top, so you can see how I accidentally sent it to everyone. But this is really for everybody. And I'll stop recording so the shy people can jump in.